Dr. Haass, good morning. My name's Christian Sullivan. I'm the head of school here at Bullis. Bullis is a school that really is profoundly interested in educating its kids about the world. And this class in particular is about educating kids about the world. Your book, which everyone has read, The World, A Brief Introduction, I think really does capture that notion of explaining the world in a very accessible way.
Well, thank you very much, and it's great to be with you all.
So I really appreciate you taking the time, and I don't want to talk a lot. I actually want my amazing 16 students who have prepared really great questions for you to speak. But I thought you could maybe start off by sharing why it is that you wrote the book.
The reason I wrote this book, in one way, can simply be stated, is the world matters. My concern was if people didn't understand from history any lessons to be derived from what it is we do in the world, that this country was much more likely to go off course when it came to our foreign policy. So I decided to write this book to give people a basic background. And I hope you found it somewhat helpful or useful and interesting. I won't ask you about the last page to see if you finished it. That would be really unfriendly of me. So over to you all.
Is there a particular region you think the U.S. should keep a closer eye on, or a country you think may become a major threat in terms of a potential World War III?
So I would say, if I were a young person, what are the parts of the world that really are likely to make a difference in your lives? I'd say the biggest is Asia and the Pacific. Think about it. China and Japan are the world's second and third largest economies. And we think of the United States as here, but the United States is a Pacific power. We border on the Pacific. We're heavily involved. In terms of threats, there's two kinds. You got threats coming from countries. You can have threats coming from groups, terrorist groups, what have you. You can have threats coming from phenomena like climate change. So I think in the future, we've got threats from all of them. And the real question is, what do you do about them? And that's called foreign policy.
So given that modern day China has really managed capitalism with authoritarianism, and through the Belt and Road Initiative, they have a lot of countries that are increasingly becoming economically dependent on them. They're really resurrecting that role that they previously had as a global superpower. So do you see the United States and the People's Republic of China heading towards a new Cold War that's more economically based?
It's a great question. It's probably one of the 2 or 3 hottest debates going on in the field right now. What happens between the United States and China will be a result of both of our decisions and behaviors, not just one. So we may want the relationship to go here, but if China isn't prepared for it to go here and wants it to go there, it's going to go there. It might go there. The Soviet Union was not much involved in the world economically. The Cold War between the United States and Soviet Union was largely military, diplomatic, ideological, not really economic. China is totally involved in the world economy. And a lot of countries who might have concerns about China in terms of their foreign policy want to have access to China's market economically. I don't want to have a Cold War with China if we can avoid it. I want China to potentially work with us on climate or on global health or on dealing with North Korea's nuclear and missile capabilities. So how do we push back in all the areas where China is giving us real problems? But how do we push back in a way that doesn't rule out our ability to work with China where it's still in our interest to do so? That's a big foreign policy challenge.
You touched on climate change quite a bit in your book, even going as far as calling it the defining issue of this century. Mm-hmm. How much time do you believe we have left to reverse our mistakes in mistreating our Earth, if we are even able to at this point?
It's not clear we can. Climate change is happening faster than our reactions to it, particularly diplomacy. My own guess is in your lifetime, sometime in the future, a couple of decades, there will be a big, big debate in this country and around the world about geoengineering. But in the meantime, I think the emphasis is quite properly on slowing down climate change and essentially trying to not just separate economic growth from emissions, but also to look at forms of economic growth, so-called green technologies, Green New Deal, which are good for the economy, but also good for battling climate change.
My question is, what long-lasting effects do you think the current government administration's policies will have on our relationship with our allies?
It's a big question, a lot of debate. So again, I think if there's a President Biden, you'll see an era where alliance relations will improve. They'll become much more central to American foreign policy again. And I think if President Trump is reelected, you'll see probably the continued weakening or dismantling of American alliances with, I think, potentially really far-reaching and largely negative consequences. But as someone once reminded me, that's why we have elections.
Definitely. Thank you so much.
No, thank you all. It's great to see you all interested. Thanks for reading my book. Now I feel pressured to produce another one. You made it tough on me.